But there's good reasons for doing it, even parking there. That's kind of like the cherry on top.
Well, it's there, the opportunity, because of the solar. So it would be.
Can I help you with anything?
You realize all things you can't do that you used to be able to do.
When are you going to be able to change the settings?
They've set it to 30 degrees. That's only 15. I want to get 15 now. So it's set it to 30. And I go back in a month and then you want to drill a hole in the bone, stick it all the way down.
So, did they
You know, they pulled loose the weekend, the rip loose.
So how did they make it?
And they cut a very big slot and pulled it around and stitched on top of the weekend.
Yeah, can I help you or
Oh, thanks. I really know how to celebrate, don't I?
Doing
I'm
better.
holding it.
There we go. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, dear. Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Stopped at your house yesterday. Yeah. I ignored your sign. I ignored your sign. My son said, "There's a sign here." I said,
Good evening and welcome to the study session, of the Independent City Council for Monday, February 12, 2018. If there's no objection from the council, I'm going to take these out of order tonight and begin with the Hawthorne Place apartment initiatives. We have several people here for that particular issue, so I'd like to go ahead and do that first. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we are joined by several representatives of the management group from Hawthorne Place Apartments, several of their employees as well. Your chief of police and I had an opportunity to meet with these folks a few weeks ago and really have a very productive discussion about opportunities for the city to collaborate with Hawthorne management on a number of issues. And in the process, I think Chief and I were both pleasantly surprised to learn about a lot of positive events taking place at Hawthorne. So we wanted to use this forum tonight to not only talk about some of the measures that we're taking to collaborate together in that part of town, but also to give the council some of those same background stories that we were able to learn as well. So tonight it's my pleasure to welcome Terry Powell-Rands, Vice President of POA from Hawthorne, to give you a presentation and also have some other staff and city staff on hand as well to answer questions. So I will turn it over to Terry.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi,
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Thanks for letting us come and speak with you this evening. Wanted to take a minute to begin with a little bit of background about Hawthorne in case you're not all familiar with the property. It was built in the late 1970s and sits on 77 acres. We have 129 buildings on those 77 acres, and there's 745 apartment homes. Those consist of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments and 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes throughout the community. We have nearly 2,000 people living at Hawthorne Place Apartments, and nearly half of those are under the age of 18, with 500 of those being under the age of 5. The school district line runs right through Hawthorne, so part of our residents go to Fort Osage and part of our residents go to the Independent School District. We have a staff of 24 led by our property manager, Debbie Johnson, and we do kind of refer to her as the mayor of Hawthorne since it's such a big place, and our regional property supervisor, Kim Barnes. I'd like to take a couple minutes to discuss our leasing process with you. and how closely we work with the Independence Police Department during this process and other ways that we work with them. An applicant will come in and ask for information and inquire about our apartments. We have them fill out a short application to get on our waiting list. Right now, we have a little over 800 people on our waiting list waiting for their next apartment home with us. Once an individual comes to the top of the waiting list, we complete our screening process. And we have an outside screening company that screens for criminal history. They'll check the sex registry, credit, and collections. We also do landlord background checks as well. We do those in-house. We also run an additional screening through Missouri's online filing system called CaseNet. And we do work with the IPD and run for them to run checks on our applicants, screening criminal history as well. With this effective screening process, we only accept around 55% of the individuals that apply to us for an apartment home. Hawthorne participates as well in the multifamily crime-free housing program. And we have every one of our residents sign a crime-free addendum as part of the leasing process. And beyond this screening process, if we find that there's someone on the site, whether it be a resident or a visitor, causing problems, or even possibly living unauthorized with a resident, we, excuse me. We do work with the Independence Police to address any situations through any legal channels that are available to us. For a resident breaking the rules or causing problems, we have an eviction process that does allow for them to remedy whatever situation might be the problem, and if that is not remedied, then we do have the eviction process that we can utilize for those individuals. For individuals that are visitors that are might be causing issues, we work with the Independence Police with trespass citations. We ban that individual from the property. We do meet with the resident whom they were visiting and have them sign a statement that says they understand that that individual has been banned from the property as well. And they can lose their housing if they allow that individual back onto the property. We've been working closely for many years with the Independence Police Department, and we have 2 community police officers on site 4 days a week, approximately 10 hours a day, and they have an office there at our property, but they spend most of their time out on the property or working with our property manager, Debbie, on any issues that might be needing to be addressed. We also have off-duty police officers working on the property approximately 5 days a week when our assigned officers aren't there. And Hawthorne compensates the Independence Police Department for the community officers and the off-duty officers that are assigned to the property. We have now many great partners at Hawthorne that we work with to reach out to our residents to provide them with any services that they might need. One of our on-site great community partners is Community Service League. And Jennifer Manulele, I'm so sorry. I worked on that, and I worked on that. She's here and is going to talk to you a little bit about what Community Service League does there on for our residents there at Hawthorne, and also what our Hawthorne residents do to give back to the Independence community. We also have another great partner on site, which is the Boys and Girls Club. They have a permanent club there at Hawthorne in our community building, and currently they are servicing over 200 children at that particular location. We have a daycare on site, and that daycare is called Small Wonders, and they have 20 children ranging from 0 to 5. And I understand that they're going to be applying to increase that to 30. Community of Christ Church is located at Hawthorne and provides services to our residents and are instrumental in many of the programs we do at Hawthorne. They work with us on our annual trunk or treat, Halloween. We had close to 300 residents attend this last October. They assist us with our annual health fair, backpacks for the kids to return to school, and many, many other things that we do at Hawthorne. Additionally, they actually provided 375 coats to our residents in 2017. Most recently, we've added the Holy Rosary Credit Union in our community building, and Jennifer will talk to you a little bit about what services they provide to our residents there as well. Hawthorne partners with many providers to improve the lives of our residents. And through the use of social media, we will work to share these positive things happening at Hawthorne with our residents and the public. We also communicate directly with our residents on an ongoing basis regarding the partnerships that we have there and the opportunities for them. And we'll continue to work with our partners to make sure that the messages regarding Hawthorne and what it offers to our residents and to independents is a positive communication. At this time, I'd really like for Jennifer to be able to come up and talk to you a little bit more about what services are provided at Hawthorne.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are you all today?
Hi.
Good. Thanks for letting us come. As she said, I'm Jennifer Manuleleua, and I am the Community Development Manager for CSL. Almost my 1-year anniversary with them, and that means we just had our 1-year anniversary with signing our partnership agreement with POA to be on site there. We were fully staffed in July, so I'm going to tell you some numbers, but understand that they didn't all happen in January to December. Some of it's been catching up. But we are excited to be part of what's happening at Hawthorne Place Apartments. We believe that the most important audience we get to work with there every day is the people who live there, the neighbors. They're our most important audience, but we are excited to be part of a much larger community there. They brought us on, as you know. CSL has been around for over 100 years. Most of those years, we were very good at emergency assistance. But about 5-6 years ago, under the leadership of Doug Cowan and our board, we decided to go deeper, and we became a LISC Financial Opportunity Center, which means we get to offer a lot more stuff to help families become stable and to reach their goals and their dreams. Part of what we do is we offer financial coaching, career development, and income supports. We have 2 financial coaches on site every day, and we have a career development specialist and an income support specialist, and then we have our activities assistant and me. I'm probably there the least, but that's because I'm out and about doing all kinds of stuff. One of the most important products we have is called the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. That's out of HUD. It is bipartisan support, and it's one of those very unknown programs that the national government offers, and that is, I'll just keep it simple. If you sign up for this program and you get a job and you live in Hawthorne, your rent's gonna go up, right? Well, if you're signed up for this program, your rent is still gonna go up, but that increase in rent goes into an escrow account that is yours. So automatically you are starting a savings account for you and your family. Now, at the same time, you're working closely with our financial coaches, meeting with them at least quarterly, hopefully more often. And you're gonna set goals, your dreams for where you wanna be. And most of the time, it's housing or education, but they get to decide if they wanna buy a boat. It's not our decision, it's theirs. But we're gonna help them make good financial decisions and learn the skills they need to learn along the way so that as they're escrowing this amount, they're gonna be able to have this whenever they're ready to go. So right now, we have 48 families enrolled in the FSS. We did not start enrolling until about the last part of June last year, and we have 7 families that are escrowing money right now. We have 120 families of the 745 that are actively seeing a financial coach on site in Hawthorne. I'm going to shift a little and talk about the credit union. As mentioned, Holy Rosary Credit Union came into Hawthorne. We launched it November 15th, and what they are able to do is there are so many things. They can finally get a positive relationship with a bank. Many of our neighbors are unbanked or underbanked. So now they get to walk in and they get to talk with Pat, who is very kind, very educational. She's a former teacher, so she can explain how banking works so that they don't get all these fees that they're not supposed to get. But they can set up their account, they can get direct deposit if they get employment, they can take out small dollar loans. Those small dollar loans help them pay off bad debt, you know, that predatory stuff, or build good credit. They'll make loans for people who most would never even touch because they believe in helping them rise up. They'll provide educational classes and a variety of other things. Sometimes they'll do car loans, and hopefully eventually they'll get to the place where they could do a home loan for some of these families. And I will say that I do have one family that is going to go to the family selection process for Habitat coming up here in the next couple weeks, just to see if she qualifies to make a dream come true for her and her daughter to become homeowners. Now, this particular mom, she's 11 years clean and sober. Yay, go her. And she wants to do everything right for her 5-year-old daughter, who is right now a Randall Bear, Randall Elementary. I'm going to switch now a little into employment specialists. So we know that getting a job is one thing. It can be hard getting a job. It's even harder to keep a job, and it's even harder to advance in a job and make it a career. So we are looking full scale at all of that. What skills need to be given and trained on, from soft skills to actual career skills. What does that look like? What do we need to do to help take down every barrier to help someone be employed? Whether that means they need a car. That is one of our biggest challenges, I'll say, is transportation. I'm sure you've heard that like all the time, but that is one of our biggest challenges. So is it transportation that's an issue? Is it childcare that's an issue? Is it confidence that's an issue? Is it anxiety that's an issue? Is it whatever it is? Let's figure it out as a team and go forward. And so just a couple of quick stories. As you guys know, you have funded CSL to do CNA training and welding in the past. Well, of some of the graduates, the welding class that just happened, one of them was one of our Hawthorne residents, and he has since become gainfully employed in a career, not a job, making $18 plus an hour, and he successfully moved his family out of Hawthorne into a home with his children. That's pretty awesome. Well, in the current CNA program that's happening right now, 2 of the 10 women in it are Hawthorne residents, and one of them is working full-time in addition to going to the CNA classes. They both are single moms. They're both working hard so that when they can get done and take their boards on March 30th, they are ready to go into a $13 an hour plus as a CNA. And I gotta tell you, I had to do a little digging today and ask our someone over that. I said, how are our girls doing? And she said, they're doing the best. They are ready. They're gonna overcome it all. So yay. That's just a couple stories. Then I'm going to shift to income supports. Income supports and housing stabilization. That's what most people think of when they think of keeping people stably housed, is paying rent and utilities, right? Well, we have put over $86,000 into Hawthorne since we went in April. Most of that is rent and utilities. Some of it's other stuff, like Shop with a Cop, thank you, and food, but a lot of it is rent and utilities. And so we're still paying that. But one of the things you need to know is we are not transactional. We are not trying to be one and done. We're not trying to say, oh, your rent's paid, see ya. No, we want to engage you in everything. We want to integrate what you're doing in everything we're doing, because we're your team, we're your community, we're your partners in this, not just today, not just tomorrow, but for even 7 years if you want to be with us. We are committed to the long haul. All right. So you know I get excited, and I'm not even looking at my notes, which was supposed to help me stay focused, but that's beside the point, so I'll just keep moving on. So now we've got all this in place. So you know the main goal is we're hoping to keep people stably housed, and we want to get them this maximum amount of savings in their escrow account, right? But what if my kid is struggling in school, and I can't go to work, or I keep getting called at work, and I'm going to lose my job anyway, so I might as well not work, right? Well, we have 2 amazing school districts that serve us out there. Now, as she mentioned, we have 2 school districts, a highway, which means we have 3 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 2 high schools, and they're quite far apart. But everyone loves their schools when we talk to them. Now, of course, there's glitches here and there, but that's okay. We know that. A couple things about working with our schools that we are doing right now. Both of our school districts are what we call trauma-informed. So what that means is people who live with a lot of crisis and chaos and trauma in their lives, they have more to overcome. It's possible, it's doable. And our schools are doing everything they can to help the children overcome that, right? Well, why can't we do that in our community? So we're partnering with the school districts, and some mental health providers so that we can become a trauma-informed or resilient community, which means teaching the parents the same skills we're teaching the kids, so that if they're flipping their lid, they know how to bring it down. Come on now, anyone else flip their lid ever? I've done it, so we all need this little support. Well, in addition to that, as mentioned, we have 500 kids that are between birth and 5 years old. That is insane, right? Right. At one point, there was 104 2-year-olds. I counted the list last summer. That's a lot. Well, by golly, let's think about 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road when they're adults and they need to become gainfully employed citizens of independence. Let's start now. So we've got 6 partners that are early education experts working with us at the table, pulling them all together so that we're not just kind of scattered in our approach, but we are working together, all going towards the same goal, which is kids are ready for kindergarten, but families are ready for kindergarten, and families are ready to be engaged in the long haul for the whole process because their kids will graduate high school. Tie that with what POA is launching, and that's called the Amy Anthony Child Savings Account. So if you are enrolled in the FSS program, eventually it'll go bigger than that, and you are in school, you automatically qualify to come up with a child savings account. POA will seed that for every kid at $250 right off the bat. But we're building a partnership with our schools that if the child is in school, 90% of the time, they get a bonus every month. If they're in class and not in having behavior problems, they get a bonus every month. And if they do family programming or when they become middle school, character training, or become high school, they take their ACT and their SATs, they get their plans, all of that, they get bonuses because we know it ups their chances extremely if they are going to college, if they have that savings account. Now, I know I'm getting long-winded, and you're probably ready for me to stop, but I got to tell just like one more thing because it's super cool. I got to get my notes here. And that is around the education. We are so excited about education that we have this thing called Bridges to Career Opportunities. So a lot of our families, they have a hard time getting into that secondary education because the second largest population after the 5 and under is 21 to 29. That's our second largest population. So we have all these young parents. They need a career, right? But they can't do the math or the reading or whatever for whatever reason. And so we're developing opportunities and partnerships with MCC and the Independent School District to help them get that education level. So as you can see, I could talk about this a whole lot longer, but I think you can see we got a lot of really good stuff going on at Hawthorne, and we have 42 community partners who are right on board with us. And POA gave us the green light to come in, and they're right next to us in all of this. So we're excited to be there, and we have hope and where we're going to be in the future.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Do you have a number on the 21 to 29?
I can look that up real quick and get that to you. But
Ballpark?
I don't know in my head.
Okay.
I know there's 550 of the families of the 745 that are single parent homes, so I'm guessing that's a lot of them.
Wow. 1,000 under 18.
41% of our population is 9 and under.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So, Terry, I don't know if you had anything else or if that concluded. So, just a quick word then that, and then Mayor, I would yield for questions. But part of the conversation that is still evolving with Terry and the staff at Hawthorne is really about what can the city do to help continue to foster a productive environment. So we have been having some discussions around our public infrastructure up there. There are 6 entry and exit points. So we've been having some discussions about what's the appropriate number. That's been a discussion between Public Works, Police, and Fire. So of course you got to have entry and exit points, but we're trying to promote vehicular safety, pedestrian safety, both for the residents of Hawthorne and the surrounding neighborhood. So as you can imagine, with that large of a population, there's a lot of folks coming and going, and we want to provide a safe environment and experience for everyone regarding that. We've also been working with management about ways that our police department can continue to plug in through technology and some other opportunities. So those are some discussions that are still unfolding, and that tonight I don't have specific examples for you because we're still kind of in what's best for all parties discussion. But those are conversations that are happening, and we're very excited about enhancing of what's already a strong partnership between the city, the police department, and the folks at POA. So at this point, Mayor, I think we could go ahead and yield to the council for any questions or comments you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Comments or questions from the council? None? Councilmember DeLucy.
I just wondered if there was a way for the city to help integrate the community of Hawthorne with the neighborhood around. I used to live out there, and I know from just my personal experience, that was Hawthorne, and I was over here. And I don't know, and maybe that's not our role, but I think if it's not, maybe it should be, to integrate the community. And I don't know what kind of ideas, maybe a block party. I know there's a bunch of churches there, and maybe the city could set something up that would engage the community with the Hawthorne community. And so it's no longer them and us.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the Hawthorne folks, so if any of them have anything, please come up. But I will say that that was a big topic of discussion when Chief Halsey and I met with the staff, is opportunities for better integration between, you know, that's not just, like, as you said, two different neighborhoods, but one distinct neighborhood and part of town. And those are conversations that we both have a strong interest to see turn into reality, and continuing to facilitate that.
Okay, thank you. Anything I can do,
It would be,
I
yes.
definitely will do it.
And I'll continue to keep the council informed of that, about our efforts to do so, and ask for your involvement where appropriate.
Thank you.
Councilman?
If I may, these statistics and the dynamics of your population, it just lends itself to hectic. I mean, those young people, I mean, it's just going to bring it in. The things you have adapted and brought to start. I mean, I can't imagine 30 kids out of 500, I mean, being taken care of and that's, you coming up?
Yes, sir. I can help address some of that too, if you would allow me.
No, sit down.
We've had stakeholder meetings with the school districts,
Major
the principals.
Turner, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
What do they call you at home?
Yeah, my name's Ed Turner, major with the police department. I'm also over the special operations divisions, which two of those officers in my division are assigned permanently to that location, Hawthorne. And we've pulled together some stakeholders in the community. It started out in a smaller cell of people with all the school districts, community service league, and we're wanting to grow that out into the outer realm of the peripheral of that, what Councilmember DeLucia had mentioned. So, and then the partnership with the children is paramount. By spending time we're really fortunate because right underneath of the office where we house the officers is the Boys and Girls Club. And so just that FaceTime with the children is paramount for us to develop those relationships so that we can enhance that experience out there.
Yeah. And I and everybody else, you know, it's been less than spectacular, the stigma of the Hawthorne apartments. But in hearing this, I can only tell you, hoorah. I mean, you're a moving lawn, and this is anything we can do as a whole. I mean, you got the line. You're going down the road, and it's all wonderful. I mean, I know that it isn't, that you have to do this, and that with your changing dynamics of your population, because it goes like this, you're always going to have some kind of troubles, and it goes without saying that any place would. But the steps you're taking are out of sight. I mean, way to go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I remember when I was a 2nd District City Council person, and Councilwoman DeLucia, I do remember representing you about some issues and stuff, and you were very outspoken then as you are now. Yes, it is true. And I would congratulate. So. Right. I would congratulate you on the many achievements that you've made out there. I remember the Boys and Girls Club when Jerry Thomas was out there, and he just had one section of a townhome out there, and look at you guys now. So I really appreciate everything you've done to dig in deep there and do what you're doing. And I had a good conversation with Jennifer on the way down to St. Charles. I was approached by a gentleman at one of my churches, and he thought he had a great idea. And I said, you know what, I don't know about Hawthorne. I said, well, let's find out. So I talked to Jennifer a little bit, and it's that kind of thinking out of the box that we're going to touch base in a few weeks and see if something may work out there. But it's that thinking out of the box that help make things move and progress. So thank you.
As many people have said, I mean, when I think about Hawthorne, it is a neighborhood. It's not unlike any neighborhood across our city. There's a sense of community there, and I think what builds a sense of security in a neighborhood is having more of that sense of community and being a part of something. I think Councilmember DeLucy makes an excellent point of it does feel, you know, historically that it's been somewhat self-contained and isolated, and those are things that we certainly need to work on, building those connections with the greater community. Like any neighborhood, the physical elements of it are important, and we, you know, I can share, as the city manager has alluded to, that, you know, we have worked with the management at Hawthorne and with the police department and the city council and the city management to start, you know, just sort of evaluating some of those things. You know, we see this in neighborhoods all over our city, as, you know, people saying, you know, this street just kind of becomes a freeway for people to like zip through who don't live here or, you know, aren't visiting here. So, I mean, that's not at all unique to this neighborhood, but it is something that is of a concern. And, you know, also some discussions about when people are coming to visit, you know, how are they identified? You certainly know who your neighbors are, who your residents are, but, you know, maybe looking at some strategies of identifying who the visitors are, where they're coming from, how long they're there, those types of things. So I think, you know, those are some ideas that we're exploring, and some extra security measures that any neighborhood would consider installing if they were having, you know, some concerns about, you know, people coming in and out. So, you know, I know we don't want to get too specific because those discussions are still ongoing, but we are hearing, you know, the concerns from the community, particularly the members of that community, and so I want, you know, to make that clear that we are certainly taking those seriously and investigating some ways to make people feel more comfortable living there, visiting there, having their many young people and children there. I think it's wonderful to have this opportunity for people to hear everything that is going on, because, as we've said several times now, it does tend to be rather self-contained, and maybe the story isn't being told of all of the services that are available and all the partnerships that you have put into place to help to enhance that neighborhood for the people who are living there. So that's marvelous. I mean, the financial opportunities, the partnerings with the school districts, certainly having our IPD on hand there, and the Boys and Girls Club, which I know has been there for a long time. Those are all great things that help to build that community. So it's nice to hear about all of those things. So we will continue to have these discussions, to hear from the residents, the surrounding community, on ways that we can continue to work together for that neighborhood. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
Nothing on that topic.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to say, I do have to say thank you to the management. It is a different day than it was 10 years ago when I lived in that neighborhood. So thank you all. Keep working it hard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to the city communications update. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, a key part of the Independence for All strategic plan is a goal focused on customer focus. One of the key strategies in that is a more streamlined, consolidated city communications plan, which the council adopted a city communications plan recently. We've had a lot of progress in that area, certainly see a lot of opportunities still ahead, but tonight we wanted to use this as a touch point to update the council on our public communication efforts and where we see that going. So I'm going to turn this over to our Public Information Officer, Meg Lewis, for an update tonight.
Good evening, everyone. So wanted to look back real quickly. We have a key focus in our Independence for All strategic plan to improve customer-focused communication. And one of my first goals as the new Public Information Officer last summer was to create a new communication plan for the city. And a quick reminder, the 5 key goals that we outlined in that communication plan were conduct a branding audit, unify city communications and utilize available tools, update city scene, engage with the media and opinion leaders to increase the reach of positive stories, and improve the customer focus through communication. And I think that we've been pretty successful over the last few months in that. As we have looked to the benchmark goals in communications, we have met or exceeded all of our goals for the social media platforms and the growth of the audience in each of those areas. For example, in Instagram, we have far exceeded the 3% growth that was outlined by 35% in Q1 and 52.8% in Q2. We are upping our game on City 7. We've added the new Council Corner segment. We've looked to new opportunities to share what's going on with the Palmer Center and new ways to cover events like the Mayor's Christmas tree lighting. And we are engaging in dynamic conversations with the public like never before. This is resulting in hundreds of stories over the last few months. This is just a representation from October 1 to February 1st. And we had 1,500 stories or mentions of the City of Independence. So you look at these breakdowns and you will see where those stories are. You will notice that the largest piece of both the donuts is the police department. We have a very active police department and they are doing a lot every day, so they receive a lot of coverage. And that is why the overall. On the next, you'll notice that we also have a lot going on in tourism. This is our Kansas City Mavericks. This is the Comets and the things that are going on at the Silverstein Ice Center Arena, and all of those things that are drawing people to the City of Independence to learn more about what we're doing here. This gives you an idea of how many stories and mentions happened over each day throughout that October 1 through February 1 period. So media exposure it just means that they mentioned the City of Independence. So it could have been someone in a traffic accident who was from Independence, or it could have been a story originating here in Independence about Officer Wagstaff, or the efforts we've undertaken on the video or surveillance ordinances. You'll see the 3 different pieces. The largest is the online mentions. So that is online news stories or articles that are referencing the city or the different departments within the city. And I put this one in here specifically to give an opportunity to talk about one area of our goals was to improve the positive representation of the city in these stories. The algorithms that are used by the system that we use to monitor media will look at key terms in a story. So when you have a story that is about a crime victim, even if that story is our police officers doing their job, because it's related to a crime, is going to have a negative connotation overall. The neutral stories, we see every piece of news related to the City of Independence, from an obituary from someone who lived here throughout their life, to a story about the local youth in a boxing league. So Those neutral stories are stories that may not necessarily be positive or negative, but are part of the story of independence. And then those positive stories are the Officer Wagstaff coming home, the youth who have developed a homeless campaign to collect goods and go out in our community. And we've seen a number of those stories as well. The month of December was more positive than negative because of the work our community was doing and the response we saw from Officer Wagstaff. And in the end, we're reaching millions of people. The largest block there is our online, and you see that we have reached well over 1 billion people online in that October to February period. People see stories about independence in a variety of places all over the internet. And we know where those are in many ways. The Examiner, as we can imagine, is our biggest source of news, but we also are often in the local broadcast stations as well on their websites. Some of the names you may not recognize on there are related to entrepreneurs. We have a large number of inventors, I have learned through monitoring the media, who are creating a lot of different things, from a fume hood to a new type of luggage over the last few months. And we know that people are engaging and having conversations like never before because of the ability to monitor the analytics of all of this. This is a Facebook post that we put up on January 26th regarding the construction of a new Dairy Queen at the corner of Little Blue and Jackson. It went viral. We saw hundreds of likes and comments and shares, and people were very excited about the upcoming Dairy Queen over by Menards. We also saw an increase of almost 300 followers on Facebook over a basically 5-day period. This shows you our continued growth in Facebook. It's the easiest opportunity for us to show the growth in audience. This is over the October to January 30th period, or rather July 1 to January 30th. And as you can see, we're constantly adding more people. People are engaging and paying attention to the city. I wanted to specifically show you the jump in the last few weeks alone on Facebook, how many people are engaged with the city. And these posts are reaching more people than ever before. That What's That post with the Dairy Queen reached over 70,000 people by the time my last check. So we have approximately 7,000 followers on the city's Facebook page, and we can reach 10 times that through that opportunity. More important than those reaches, though, and those likes, are people are engaging. People are doing a reaction, which is the opportunity to like or love, wow, sad face, or angry. And the good thing on that is most of our engagements are overwhelmingly positive. So as you can see in your graph that has the colors on there, we are overwhelmingly positive in the likes, and more than it's loves, and then we have some wows in there as well. So people are showing positive emotions associated with our posts. And this gives you an idea of the number of social media posts that go up on a given day related to the city. So this is Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The peak that you see towards the middle is around Officer Wagstaff coming home. And we keep looking toward what's next. We did our first tweet along on February 6th with the fire department. And a tweet along is where we are actively tweeting about a particular topic or posting on Twitter about a particular topic over a given period of time. This is one way that we celebrated the 175th anniversary of the fire department, and we gave insight into the department, some facts about the different apparatus that they're using, as well as what they do as firefighters. We're looking to new campaigns. Throughout the month of February, we were doing the We Love INDEPMO hashtag and have included our staff in this and asked them to take pictures of themselves going about their daily activities to share with the public, as our staff are one of the things that we love about Independence. As outlined in our goals, the revamp of City Scene was a key step in our communications revival, and we've heard many positive responses from the public on what is happening there by including timely articles and updates on what the council is doing. Perhaps most exciting is what is coming up in the next few weeks, and that is the rebranding. So we will be beginning that process and looking to get rid of a few of the 40 brands that we use on a regular basis. And that's the update. I am happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Comments or questions? Councilmember?
I know that, excuse me, I'm sorry. I know that the police department has a Facebook page, and I know the City of Independence has a Facebook page. Does the fire department have a Facebook page, and are they all linked together, or how does all that work?
So the fire department does not have a Facebook page today.
Okay.
It will in the near future. We are developing the content for that, and then we'll launch it once we have that background. We work closely together on those pages. The Facebook page for the police department is maintained by Officer Syme, who is here with us today, and he and I collaborate on a regular basis to promote the content on both those pages and Nextdoor.
Can they be linked?
They cannot be linked. They have to be separate. You, the administrator, can be linked to different pages. I am on pretty much every city page but the police department's Facebook page. So I can see posts, comments, like shares from everyone that's looking at Parks, Rec, and Tourism, the Visit Independent page, the new National Frontier Trails Museum page. I know all of that's going on those pages, but we cannot connect them. We are able to, when there is an event that is going on in Parks, Rec, and Tourism, we can make the different pages co-sponsors, so it shows up on the calendar for all of the different pages across the city.
Does Park and Recreation have a page?
Parks, Rec, and Tourism has a page.
Okay.
National Frontier Trails Museum has a page.
Has a page.
And the Tourism Department has a page.
Okay.
We
And I
did
really
dec-
like the city scene, by the way.
Thank you.
Can you put all those addresses for the Facebook for all these different items on there somewhere? And I know we don't have space. I know that, but
We have made an effort over the last few months to combine our Facebook pages. IPO was the most recent page that was combined with the city to encourage people to come to the city's main page for that information.
okay.
As appropriate, we are using those other pages for particularly an event in parks. They will do toddler time, and then we will share it to the city's Facebook page.
Okay.
So we are trying to cross-promote across both those pages, but we want to make sure that everyone has one single spot that they can get most of their information.
There's just so much happening in Independence,
That's always
and
fun.
which is exciting,
Yep.
but it's hard to keep up.
And
So
we're trying
thank
to
you
make
for all
it as
your-
easy as possible.
Well, thank you. I really like that city scene. It's really so much more attractive. Thank you.
Councilman?
Well, thank you. It sounds like we've taken a big leap forward this year because we didn't have a lot of this a year and a half ago. So congratulations. Thank you for what you've done. It's going to only snowball, from here. I guess one of my questions, and I think I know the answer, but are we working on an app or different apps that people could actually download? I know we talked about that for tourism and about the historic sites in Independence, and people could eventually pull those up and get information. But perhaps they could do that with city departments as well. If there's a city app down the road, as well as the city history or historic apps and tourism apps.
So there's a couple of different things that are in the works, and I will not speak as the expert on both of those, but I can reference them. Tourism is working on an app that does reference some of our historic places, and then we do have an effort for customer service that would allow us to share some of the departmental calendars that the city manager's office is working through.
Very good. I think we are becoming a mobile society, and especially the millennials and that generation, maybe some of us older ones too, but it's only going to perpetuate the influx of people into Independence the more accessible we are, especially on phones and mobile devices. So, yeah.
The one comment I might make on that, Mayor and Council, is our citizen satisfaction survey that we do every 2 years. That's one of the specific questions that we ask about how are you accessing information from the city. And because of the diverse population that we have in the community, we still have folks that prefer to get their information from the city scene or read the newspaper. This is one of the things Meg's cautioned us about as part of our communication plan, is making sure we don't create a divide where we leave anybody behind. So we still try to work that, but we are trying to keep up with what we know is the inevitable transfer to a more mobile society.
Thank you.
The city scene looks great. It is such an improvement, and the content is really, really good, so that's exciting to see, and I know a lot of people do read it and like to catch up on things. Couple of things. Facebook can be frustrating because they're constantly changing the algorithm, and so even a page that you may follow or like doesn't always show up when you're scrolling through your Facebook page, during the day. So how do we educate people about how to fix that? Because I think there's probably, I'm sure that there's tons of people who like our page but aren't regularly seeing it or any of the other pages that we are trying to promote.
One way we're actively doing that is encouraging in City Scene and some of those press releases for our citizens to go to this Facebook page itself.
Yes.
So then they'll go to that, much like a website, you'll see the active communication there. Citizens themselves can make Facebook one of the first pages they see, but they have to toggle in the menu on their personal account to determine which pages they want to give preference to. And there are directions through Facebook. Facebook is regularly changing those algorithms that determine who sees what on their pages, and in the last few months has determined that family and friends will be elevated over news, which government pages are included in. So we're still looking how that will wash out over the next few months, but we have seen over the last few weeks alone, if we have content that people are interested in, it will get shared and people will see it more.
Okay. When you collect the media outlets that help you to put together those graphs, are you choosing who to collect that from, or is that just aggregating from everybody? Television, radio, print, online, all of it?
They're looking at the Kansas City media market, and we have Boolean queries that have utilized key terms associated with the city or our departments to pull all of that information together. That's not to say that it's infallible, so there are times where I'll catch a story on one of our regional outlets that I'll pull to the attention of the company that we utilize on this, but it is very helpful to have an understanding of all of the different places across the state and Independence that we're seeing the conversation about the city.
I noticed that the Kansas City Star is not on the list.
Kansas City Star was not one of our top sources. That does not mean that it is not a source that covers us. It does not cover us as much as other outlets in the area. We are a more consistent topic on the TV news stations, and we've worked hard to develop those relationships. Both Officer Sam and I are in regular contact with many reporters from the TV stations in the area. There is ongoing work to do with Kansas City Star and other outlets in the area. It's always a work in progress.
We still, I mean, you've done tremendous work, and we certainly have gotten a lot more media coverage, and I think probably that graph that shows positive, negative, neutral is very typical. I don't think we're getting less positive news coverage than anybody else. So, you know, I'm not terribly concerned about that. But what we continue to hear from our community is exactly what Councilmember DeLucia said, is there's so much going on and it's not well known. So despite, you know, all of our, you know, tremendous efforts and ongoing efforts, that we're still struggling to really spread our word, especially outside of our city. I mean, inside of our city, there seems to be really an increased awareness about what's happening, but how do we spread that news outside of our city, and especially the positive news? And then my second question is about City 7 and how that, I mean, I know I'll go home tonight and my husband will say, I tried to watch the council meeting, but there was no sound, there was no picture, it didn't come up, whatever. So can you address what the future plans are with City 7, and then talk a little bit more about our, you know, our kind of local and regional outreach?
So we continue to look for new opportunities to tell stories through City 7 and the technology needed to do so. There are some updates that we can look to in this room to potentially help with the sound and visual issues, and that has been a work in progress over the last few years. And we regularly are meeting with departments for content to add to City 7, behind the scenes on departments that explain sort of in detail what the general public may not know about how something works for them. And those will be coming in the next few months, highlighting efforts like the farmers market, the mayor's Christmas tree, and doing more news type segments for City 7. It is a work in progress, and will continue to grow over the next few months. As to the reaching the outside audience, we continue to look for opportunities to collaborate with our peers, to share the stories through organizations, through MARC, and how we can work together to share same content or similar content and elevate it in the eyes of the media in the area. We are excited about the potential the branding revamp has to help centralize the overall message of who and what independence is, and the growth that we can see from that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councilmember?
Yes, I've got something. When we first came on the council, this was your vision to have this department, you remember?
That's true.
And that was not even ever considered in part of the discussion, because the old guard wanted to do it the old way. It wasn't long before the old guard was gone, the new guard came in, you were mayor, and you made this a reality, and we've really seen a tremendous improvement in our image, and we have you to thank for that.
Oh, thank you. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This takes us to staff reports, and we will begin with Police Community Camera Program. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as I think we've heard discussed here tonight, in the unfortunate event that we do have some problem solving for our police department to do, video surveillance can play a key part in that. I know Councilmember Doherty's championed some legislation to address this at different businesses across the city. Tonight we have an innovative program that the police department has come up with, and I'm going to ask Officer John Syme, Public Information Officer, to share some information with you on that.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, I appreciate the opportunity. About a week ago, I think, Chief Halsey asked me to come and talk about a new program, and I'm really excited to roll it out to you this evening. The IPD Community Camera Program is a voluntary camera registration program in which individuals and businesses register their cameras with the police department to let us know simply that they have a camera in their home or in their place of business. We know that video surveillance, as discussed, is extremely important to helping us solve crimes and assist us in prosecuting later on down the road criminals in our community. And this program is a good example of community police partnership. We do also know that many citizens already do have cameras. Many business owners already do have them, and it's almost become an expectation as a crime prevention measure, both at your home and place of business. So by registering their camera with the police department, it allows our officers to know where cameras exist in the community. And this comes into play when they respond to calls for services or when detectives arrive on scenes of major cases. Traditionally, our detectives would go door to door and conduct a neighborhood canvass to do this. And what this will do is simply speed up that process and allow our officers and detectives to know where these cameras are at that point. It's important to emphasize the voluntariness of this program. We're allowing people to let us know about this through an online registration form. They simply go on the city's website and let us know, we have a camera. This is my name, this is my contact information, and you may contact me to inquire about it. So each and every time the officers check, there's no obligation on their part to participate. Each and every time we contact them, it is voluntary. We ask, we know that you have a camera, a crime occurred nearby, may we view it? And they would give us access at that point. It's important to note that this is not a monitoring service by police. We will not have any remote access to the systems if it is online. We don't ask for any usernames or passwords. And it is simply just an effort to work with each other because crime is a community problem, and we rely on citizens to help us solve crimes in our community. What lets us get access to this quickly is we've discussed with our crime analysts to utilize an existing crime mapping software that we already have. So this is a free program for us. This is not going to cost us anything. We're using the elements of what we use on communitycrimemap.com. But on the police side, we have our officers and detectives, they can log into a website and they're going to be able to see where these cameras are on the same mapping system. And that is a secure system that only we have access to. And I believe that's all I have. I'd love to open it up to any questions or things that I did not address.
Let's put this in terms of a scenario.
Sure,
So,
sure.
It's just so it's clear. I have a camera at, say I have a camera at my home or business, and somebody reports a car was broken into, and so you would contact the people in that area who have informed you that they have a camera and you would say, would it be okay for us to look at your footage and see if we see anything?
Yes, ma'am.
That's how that would work. Or if it was a silver alert or something of that nature where, that you would just contact people who you think are in the vicinity if they are registered and say, would you say, can we look at it? Or would you say, will you look at it and tell us if you see anything that you think might be helpful?
Most of the time, because systems vary greatly, we do rely on the owners to give us some insight how to operate them.
Yeah.
I know frequently when I was working patrol, we would go into a business and ask them how to operate their system, and they might walk us through how it operates, but we'd figure it out. So either way, whatever gets it done, but it's completely voluntary. There are several examples where we could use this, and that's a really good one. Recently, we had a missing disabled adult, and it took us quite a while to find him. He was in his 20s, he was autistic and nonverbal. A program like this may have helped us locate him much quicker than we did. We relied on another jurisdiction to find him in Kansas City. He walked about 5 miles. And with a program like this in place, we may be able to go to the area and say, we have a camera right there on that street. Why don't we ask those people? Because, everyone's going about their lives. They may not be sitting on their front porch when the police are rolling by. That's realistic. But if we have that contact information, we can give them a call and say, hey, we have a missing person, can you help us find them? And I think in that situation, this could have been effective.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions?
Mayor.
Yes.
During this last election that I was in, I hadn't done one in a while, and I was absolutely amazed about how many homeowners have cameras up on their front door or by their front door and their stoops and their patios and stuff. So this would be a great way for the neighbors to kind of reach out and help one another out by getting involved in this program.
Yes, sir, and absolutely. And I think utilizing the existing neighborhood connections we have, such as Neighborhood Watch, that's going to help us promote this program. And I think utilizing social media as well, Nextdoor, Facebook, Twitter, we're going to be able to let people know that this exists and further that net that we're going to have.
Okay. Anything else?
Can you tell us how to access the online registration? Is there
Sure.
a specific address?
I put it through. It is the city's URL, and it's going to be ccp.html. But what I'm going to do is after tonight, I will promote it through our social media. So that's going to be the first thing you see
Very
on both
good.
our Facebook page and the police department's website, or the web page as part of the city's website.
Very good, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anything else? Yes, Councilman.
Extrapolate. I mean, the next step in this thing would be to be able to contact these people and ask for something along the line of an Amber Alert. In other words, we're looking for this. Have you seen, or can you? So when you're getting their information and everything, you obviously, I mean, because this day and age, nobody doesn't do the where you get to their computer.
Like
Web page, huh?
Like a remote access?
No, you know, like mine's TV and Camp One at.
Oh, okay, email
Okay,
address.
yeah, your
Right,
email.
so if you had that and you could, you know, just by a push of the button, send the one message. I mean, if it was some kind of deal like that.
Absolutely, sir. That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it would open up, whether they do it or not, and it's voluntary, as you said, so the deal, but that would be an opportunity.
Yes, the
Not
email
with-
address is one of the contact information pieces that we ask for, and that would be a good example. If we did have an Amber Alert, we could go down our list of those area cameras and shoot them all an email, and if they respond with the information, we can go out there and retrieve it, or they can email that footage to us directly.
Yeah, voluntary.
Voluntary
You're
every
under the-
time.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That just seemed obvious.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I just want to add that the key here is community partnership, and we can't do what we do without the help from the community. Everything we do includes that, and this is just one example of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, finally this evening, sidewalk and curb and gutter policy. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you will recall, when your street improvement sales tax renewal committee made their recommendations to the council last spring to pursue renewal of the existing 1/2 cent sales tax, one of the recommendations was to look at utilizing funds in the future for curb and sidewalk replacement. Since that time, Public Works Director Tim Grambling has taken that recommendation and looked for ways to incorporate it into our annual maintenance plan. So tonight, Tim would like to share with you some of those recommendations and how we think we could utilize them going forward. So, Mr. Grambling.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Excuse me. As City Manager said, we're here to talk about sidewalks and curb and gutter. So kind of wanted to start off with a little bit of a commercial. This presentation is being brought to you by the renewed sales tax, street sales tax by the City of Independence voters. Actually, it's because of the sales tax that we're here tonight to talk about this. As you recall, this was passed by voters, resounding 82% approval rating for continuing this tax when it sunsets. The current tax, as you know, sunsets in December of 2019. As also, you may remember, you appointed or commissioned a committee, a renewal committee, back in the spring of last year to take a look at this tax, to make a recommendation on whether or not it needs to be renewed, and then also, you know, if so, any other recommendations they might have as far as other things that they might want to consider along with the renewal. And as you can see here, just kind of as a reminder of their recommendations, they did recommend to renew the tax at the existing 1/2 cent level that it was at, seek a perpetual renewal, And then some other recommendations were to limit the percentage of the operating costs, 5 to 8% of the annual revenues, continue to leverage the funds for state and federal transportation grants, and to continue to appoint a Citizens Oversight Committee. And as you can see here in the ballot language, the language, it was also included, and actually what the voters approved did include sidewalks and curbs, something that they did want us to take a look at as part of the sales tax as we continue to move forward. So when we wanted to start looking at what direction we wanted to go with this recommendation, the good place to start was to look at the city's strategic plan, Independence for All. So under that, one of the first objectives that we looked at that seemed to fit was under improving the visual appearance of major commercial corridors and historic sites. And to do that by implementing a strategy to accomplish the target street and sidewalk maintenance along major corridors and historic sites. Another objective in the strategic plan that we wanted to look at was to improve public infrastructure and facilities. And to do that by developing a strategy to develop a pavement condition index and implement a street maintenance program that targets improvements in high visibility and high need areas. We checked that one off because that pavement management analysis was conducted a couple of years ago, was completed, and we are now actually using that to implement a street maintenance program to do just that. Under the same strategy, under the same objective, another strategy that was mentioned was to renew the street sales tax as part of the sustainable funding strategy for the public infrastructure, which, as I mentioned earlier, has already been done as well.
In perpetuity.
Yes. Also under that same objective, we want to look at a strategy to ensure the complete streets policy is implemented during all new construction projects and renovations. This also is something that is being done. Any project that we do, any street improvement that we do include those requirements of that policy wherever we can. The third objective that we looked at under the strategic plan was to increase the perception of safety. And by using a strategy to improve street lighting and sidewalks in priority areas, we could accomplish that as well. Also, as we continue to consider what direction to go moving forward, became aware of another plan that's actually being worked on. It's in a draft form right now, but it's something that's going to be recommended by the Mid-America Regional Council, and that is a regional pedestrian policy plan. The idea behind this plan is to kind of bring together a regional vision to improve the walkability across jurisdictional boundaries and coordinate planning efforts at a regional level, and to provide recommendations to enhance regional and local efforts. So some of the goals under this plan would be to increase safety of pedestrians, increase and improve the quality of pedestrian facilities, and target areas of high need and density of pedestrians. Also, as part of the plan, they want to recommend some local strategies that they want the local jurisdictions to consider as well, and to make priorities for these types of facilities by including sidewalks in capital improvement programs, prioritize improvements where the highest needs exist, and to have planning and zoning mandates that sidewalks and development and redevelopment, which the City of Independence already has that part of it in place. Why this could be important for any city, but for us especially, is that as we move forward and when we want to get grants and STP funds and that type of stuff, the more we can line up with these types of regional facilities, the better off we are and the better chance we have of getting those grants. So one of the things that comes up whenever we start talking about what our current policy is, as a lot of you know, the sidewalks and the curb and gutter right now are considered property owner responsibility as far as maintenance and repairs of those facilities. So one of the questions I usually get asked is what are other cities in the region doing? What do they require? Who's responsible in these other areas? There was a survey or a benchmarking initiative that took place last year, and where some of the cities in the region were surveyed, and one of the questions that was asked was about who is responsible for maintaining sidewalks in your community. And this was the metro area, so it included communities in Kansas as well as Missouri. But in that survey, about 54% said that it was the city's responsibility to repair those and maintain those facilities. About 46% was property owners. I'd always kind of thought it was about half and half, and this kind of supports that, a little slightly more toward the cities being responsible for those types of facilities. Curb and gutter is wasn't really included in the survey as far as who requires or who's required to maintain those, but just from my experience, typically curb and gutter is looked at as part of the street system, so it's more commonly maintained by the cities or the jurisdictions responsible for the public roadway. As I mentioned, it is currently part of the city's policy in City Ordinance 1706-02 that property owners or occupants are to repair the sidewalk or any curbing or guttering in front of or alongside of each house, building, lot, or premise. Mostly this is done on a complaint basis because we don't actually go out and police that, but when we do get complaints, you know, it's a code violation for them to not repair something that's in a disrepair. So to kind of get an idea of kind of how big of an animal we were talking about when it comes to addressing these types of facilities, in 2016, we did, as part of the pavement management program that we did, we had an inventory of our existing sidewalks and curb and gutter taken so that we know the lengths or how much we have out there, but also to have a condition associated with the sidewalks and the curbs. As a result of that survey, we found out we have 658 miles of curb and gutter, which is almost 3.5 million feet. And I guess this is good news that you can see that about 91% of that length of curb and gutter is actually rated in good condition, 8% in fair condition, and only about 1% in poor condition. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's about 100 blocks of curb and gutter. But when you look at the costs associated to just repair just that 1% of curb and gutter, that represents about $2 million. As far as sidewalks go, we found out it had 356 miles of sidewalks, almost 2 million linear feet, 89% in good condition, 9% fair, and only 1% in poor condition as well. That's about 65 blocks of sidewalks. The cost to repair that 1% of sidewalks in poor condition is about $2.5 million. Now, $4.5 million is a lot of money, but really it's not too significant of an amount of money that we couldn't address it in at least a reasonable amount of time. Maybe not all in 1 year, but over a period of 5 or 7 years. So just to give you an idea, I wanted to show you some pictures of kind of what they called good, fair, and poor condition in the curb and gutter and the sidewalks. So this would be what they call good condition. This is fair in curb and gutter, and then this would be poor. One of the things I wanted to kind of point out on this picture, you can see, I'll try to point to it this way. You can see kind of along the edge of the pavement there, where the pavement is actually cracking as well. Sometimes that's a relation to the curbing. More often when you see poor curbing, you also see the effects of the street. Another reason why curb and guttering really is more part of the street system than it is a private property issue. Another one in poor condition. Here's some sidewalks in good condition. These were rated in fair, and these in poor. Very poor there. We didn't have that category, but should have been. So in terms of kind of what we've been doing, for the past 7 years, we've averaged about $450,000 in spending money on sidewalks. That's primarily been done through 3 programs. One was sidewalks to schools and sidewalks to parks, or 2 different programs. those were projects that we've done that were 100% funded through the street sales tax. And then we did a project with STP funds where we matched it with sales tax, one sidewalk project that was on 24 highway from Brookside to Overton back in 2015. So that brings me to the recommendations that I'd like to put before you tonight and for you to consider. What we'd like to look at, and of course, as we said, we're still in the current sales tax, which sunsets in December of 2019. So what these recommendations we're looking at would be kind of started in January 2020. But what we'd like to do is suggest that the city take over all maintenance of all curb and gutter along public streets. Mostly this would be done through large street projects like our overlay program or any other larger project like that. But that wouldn't say that if we knew if there was a neighborhood where the streets were basically in fairly good condition and we knew we weren't going to be doing those for a while and there was enough curb and gutter to justify doing a project, we might go in and do that as like a standalone project or something like that. We'd also be looking for an ordinance change along this so that would remove that requirement from curb and gutter being a responsibility of a property owner. We'd also like to, over the next couple of years, evaluate the sidewalks that are right now rated in poor condition to determine the priorities of those to be repaired. We wouldn't necessarily be looking at repairing all of those, but what we want to do is develop some criteria along some areas that we know are the highest needs, or where that's used the most by pedestrians. It would probably include some counts on the number of pedestrians using that as well, and maybe what they're accessing to as far as transit or those types of things. And then once we feel like we've addressed all of those needs, then we would revert back to the way it's being done now with the sidewalks. But in the meantime, the maintenance we wouldn't be looking to do things like remove snow and ice or keep obstructions. That would still be the responsibility of the property owner just as it is now. And then we'd also like to suggest that the city have a new sidewalk program. That's a new sidewalk program, not a new program for sidewalks. So to improve connectivity. Again, we want to go out and do some surveying and develop some criteria where we see a lot of existing sidewalks with some gaps or some distance between where they don't connect, and it doesn't make sense for that. And we want to go out and address those areas. We're looking for relatively short distances of sidewalk. We're not looking to do miles of new sidewalk under this, but just basically to improve connectivity, that would kind of go along with supporting the plan that we talked about from Mark, Regional Pedestrian Plan, and as well as the city strategic plan. And then our fourth recommendation, as part of the current sales tax, in the beginning there was some debt that was incurred to do some projects early on in the project so they could in the sales tax to get those up and going, and we've been making debt payments on that debt every year of about a little more than $500,000 a year. That sunsets along with the sales tax in December of 19, so we're free of that debt at that point. So what we would recommend is, along with the $450,000 level that we've been spending on average every year, and along with this $500,000 debt service, combining that to virtually double our effort to put toward this sidewalk maintenance and curb and gutter maintenance. And basically we could do that without impacting the money that we've been putting toward our street projects, and virtually have no effect on that program as well. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or hear any feedback on our recommendations.
Comments or questions? Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. Effective January 2020, is that when the city's going to start developing or have some kind of idea in place for new sidewalks?
We would have already developed what we were going to do and be ready to go. We start collecting revenue from the new sales tax in January of 2020. So the idea would be to have the program ready to go, have the places identified, hopefully even have maybe a 5-year plan ahead of us by that time on what we're going to be doing going forward.
That would be some data that I would be interested in looking at. I get a lot of phone calls with people upset that, well, there's no sidewalks in my neighborhood, and they give.
Let me ask, I don't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt you,
go
but I
ahead.
want to be clear on this. The program you're laying out, if I understand it correctly, is repairing existing sidewalks. It's not to build sidewalks where there are none.
Impartial. Mostly it will be
Or
some.
maybe to connect some gaps, but we're not
Yes.
talking about giving everybody a sidewalk.
Right, right.
Okay.
Where it makes sense to connect gap, basically to include or improve connectivity where, you know, you have places,
Where it
especially in
makes
high needs areas, where you have a lot of pedestrians right now that are either walking out in the street or trying to get from one sidewalk to another and to fill those gaps. I mean, we're looking at 500 feet or so at a time here and there, not, you know, going out 6 miles to connect to a subdivision that's way out east that doesn't have any sidewalks, so.
Right, well, the two examples I was going to give was, one is my neighborhood at risk of getting tomatoes thrown at my house is, don't need sidewalks there. But if you go to Jones Road, there's a need for sidewalks there with the heavy traffic of pedestrians and particularly high school kids that go up to Chrisman High School that doesn't have anything there. So that would be some data that I would be interested in taking a look at to see where we could possibly use some of those sidewalks. Because not every neighborhood wants them. You get one individual that's upset because we don't have anything. And I've heard it before, we don't ever get anything in the first district. Well, sometimes your neighborhood just doesn't have it because it doesn't fit the overall ambiance of your neighborhood, number one, kind of like mine. So it wouldn't make sense. So I'd be curious to see that data.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I can see that the feeding frenzies start when people are wanting sidewalks.
Right.
So I wondered, I know that other cities have this kind of program, and I don't know if it's possible in this town or not. But let's say I have a sidewalk and it's going to cost me $15,000 to fix it. And I don't have that $15,000. But maybe the city has a program where I would apply for maybe a matching grant of some kind, and we would use the sidewalk money raised with the sales tax to fund that kind of program. Has that been looked at? Is that a pie-in-the-sky kind of idea? I just don't know. I mean, and I know that perhaps we could front some loans, low-interest loans.
I know it's something that the city has done in the past, a similar type.
That's what
program.
I thought.
But I don't know how long ago it was. I think, you know, the funding was no longer available for that at one point. But, I mean, it hasn't been talked about at this time, but I mean, certainly something we can take a look at and see.
I'm just thinking the bang for the buck could go much further, and it would perhaps cut down on what Councilmember Perkins is talking about. Well, District 3 gets everything, and I'm in 1 or 2 or 4, and I get nothing. It's just a thought.
Right, okay.
I agree, by the way, you asked for opinions. I agree the city should do the curb and gutters. I never considered that a homeowner's responsibility.
Councilman?
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for the presentation. I do think we need to look at changing the ordinance, and, you know, we've got a little time to do that, and start to figure out the priorities. You know, I was sitting here thinking of a lot of places in both my district and other districts that, number one, don't have any curbs, don't have or gutters, and don't have any sidewalks. And people that ride bikes or pedestrians have to jump into the ditch when cars come along. And it's dangerous. And I've heard people get hurt, you know, trying to do that. One of those places is on both sides of 23rd Street, close to the Casey's and Kings Highway. So Kings Highway does not have curbs all the way down to Gudgel. Gudgel does not have curbs from there all the way up to Noland Road. And a lot of kids are on those roads. Hanthorne School's there, there's a rest home down there. But there's no curbs, there's no sidewalks, and there's no shoulder. So it's extremely dangerous. Those are the types of situations I think down the road we need to look at. Across 23rd Street in District 2, behind Casey's, that entire neighborhood, as well as the neighborhood off of 23rd and Noland, both those neighborhoods have no curbs, no gutters, no sidewalks, period. And so those neighborhoods have gotten along okay, and maybe some of those major streets, like I'm talking about with Gudgel or Kings Highway, are ones we do need to look at possibly putting in some sidewalks or something that could allow some some public safety, because I think there's a public safety issue. Probably 25 years ago, we lived in Golden Acres. There was a project with the city. It was a public-private grant, and I don't know whether it was the city obtained it, but I don't know whether it was federal or state. But we replaced our curbs, and part of it was funded by the city, part of it was funded by each individual property owner at the time. So it's been done in the past. I would hope down the road there would be some federal or state grant money. There's probably not going to be state, but maybe some federal grant money for infrastructure that we might be able to apply for. And even if we don't get any of that, maybe we could leverage some of this sales tax money in a private-public partnership and have our own system set up where we could fund a portion of it and encourage the individual to pay for part of it as well. But we'd have to, have the sales tax committee look at that, and then maybe the council debate and look at different scenarios and look at how we could do that as well. But I think there's a lot more we could leverage, and there's a lot to be done. Even though, 1% doesn't sound like a lot, it's a lot of money. But maybe 5 years from now, there may be another 1% or 2% or 3% that will have to be looked at as well. And then, it's not a one-time or one-shot deal. So,
yeah, that was one of the things I didn't mention as far as the maintenance goes on the curb and gutter, especially on the existing curb and gutter. What I was talking about would just catch us up to what's really poor now. But over time, whatever's not poor now will eventually become that. But
correct.
I think if you kind of take care of this backlog now, down the road after 5 years or so, you may not have as big of an amount of those to take care of. So you can maybe reduce that back to just address what's becoming bad each year thereafter. So maybe a much lesser amount than what we're talking about now. So this what I was talking about with the roughly $1 million a year would be to kind of catch us up out of that backlog, and that's mostly to maintain existing that's in poor condition now. So
very good.
Yes, Councilman.
This being something dear and near to my heart, coming to the council to get the Sterling sidewalk, I applaud you. And, thank the council for giving us that money. What I see here, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the tax will be renewed, you have a certain amount of money that you have overlay program. And you see an opportunity here because it's in perpetuity, and we have to lay a similar program over that for sidewalks and gutters.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So
it would be harder to do without knowing that was going to be a continuing tax, beyond where we're at now. So. Yeah.
And overwhelmingly, as you said, the city okayed that, and they should benefit from that. And this is what you're saying. I don't see any problem. I mean, there's going to be problems. You know it, and I know it. But what you're implementing is what you have already, and make it further for this. And it just works in, and you've really done a good job in finding an extra source to do this. And the great recommendations of having a matching fund is good, but I think we can do it. Great for people who want to do that and things. But that's far-reaching and looking, and thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The 54, a little bit more than half of the cities that you researched who take responsibility for the sidewalks. How do they do that? What funding source do they have that we can replicate, or what they have that we don't have that allow them to absorb that expense?
That data wasn't part of the survey, but I'm pretty much assuming that they have a similar street sales tax or transportation sales tax or something along those lines that would fund that as well. That's what I've seen in most places. We had a similar thing where I came from as well. That it was the half-cent transportation that they use for sidewalk maintenance. So.
Because our existing street sales tax, and why it's so great that we have it in perpetuity now is because it allows us to plan further ahead with the assurance that the money's going to be there. But it's still, I mean, it's not adequate for us to take this over entirely to even maintain what we currently have, much less construct things where they're needed or where the community wants them. I mean, you know, as Councilman Robertson said, I mean, we can all find areas in our districts and in our city where nothing is there where there should be. And those are done, you know, through various ways. So, you know, I think this is a step in the right direction to start maintaining more of what is in bad condition and doing repairs. But I do think it's extremely important, and we have some time on this, is for people to understand that this is a maintenance program, that this is not going to, in some situations we might create a short connection where it makes sense that there isn't one, but I certainly don't want to raise the community's expectations that our current resources are going to allow us to do very much, or if any, new construction of sidewalks.
Yeah, that's true, especially when you're looking at curbing and guttering. You hear a lot about that, but one of the things is, you know, unless you're in the industry, you have to understand about curb and guttering. That's actually a drainage feature for a street.
Yes.
And usually associated with curbing and guttering is also storm sewers and inlets, and that gets very expensive when there's not any there now.
Particularly in neighborhoods in the first, I'm going to say first, fourth, and second district, is where they weren't ever constructed in the first place. I mean, that infrastructure wasn't in place. I mean, some of the neighborhoods in the third district and neighborhoods we're seeing develop in the second district as well, the developer puts that in. I mean, when the neighborhood is built, or when the commercial district is built, when 39th Street was developed, that was included in the development. In these older neighborhoods, that was never included in the development. And then to go back and try to retroactively construct that in densely populated neighborhoods and getting into the stormwater infrastructure, there's no way that this streets sales tax can fund that, or even in combination with the perpetual storm water sales tax. So I just want to be clear that we are truly talking about expanding our maintenance, but we're not talking about construction.
Right.
Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, may I add just a few examples of what you're referencing, because you're exactly right. The communities that are tackling this have identified a dedicated source of revenues. For example, if any of our citizens are traveling through Liberty in their historic square, you'll notice some beautiful new sidewalks. That was addressed with a special sales tax for economic development, specifically targeted at the historic Liberty Square. The large, well-known one to many of us is the Kansas City, Missouri bond that was approved last April. That included significant dedicated funding for addressing deteriorated sidewalks. So I just want to echo what you're saying, that many of these, our tax will help us in Independence address some of these, but certainly, you know, we want to manage expectations that the communities that have this have a dedicated source of revenue other than just this street improvement sales tax.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay. Anything else tonight, Mr. City Manager?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
We're adjourned.